Okay, and check. Yes, we are live. Yes, we are live. Good. Alrighty. So it's good to see everybody after 2 days. And the reason we didn't have anything for the last 2 days is that on one day we had Bhakti True Maharaj's appearance day celebration. And yesterday we had an initiation in the temple. So that's why we didn't have anything online at that particular point. We had, of course, the initiation, at least my part of the initiation was, or is, on my Facebook page, Krishna Goswami. Actually, bkgoswami Das. Yeah. So, let us chant a little bit. Gurudev, Kripa Bendudia, Kuruet say, Trina Pekadina, Kripa Bendudia, Kuruet say, Trina Pekadina. Sakalatsarane, Uradio Goro, Nichumana Sprina. Sakalatsarane, Uradio Goro, Nichumana Sprina. Sakales, Ankorte, Shikati, Leonata Yata. Sakale saman kurate shikati Nata yata jata Tabida gagibo Harina masuke Aparada hoiviyata Tabida gagibo Harina masuke Aparada hoiviyata Gabe hey kripa Noyagi channa kritada Oimenata Gabe hey kripa Noyagi channa kritada Oimenata Shakti Buri Egen Nami Atiten Urumori Atisata Shakti Buri Egen Nami Atiten Koromori Atmasata Yogyata Vichare Kichuna Hipoi Tumarakaruna Sara Yogyata Vichare Kichuna Hipai Tumara Karuna Sara Koranana Hoile Kandiya Kandiya Prananara Kivara Korana Hoile Kandiya Kandiya Prananara Kivara Gurudev Kripa Benudia Korue Dase Trina Bekalatina Kripa Benudia Korue Dase Trina Bekalatina Sakala Sarane Mulodia Koro Nijamana Sprayalina Haribol, Haribol, Haribol. Jai Om. Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Paramahansa all Stotela Sitashi Shimad. His Divine Grace Avaya Chaitanya Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Sayam Kund Radhikunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Ki Jai. Mathuram Ki Jai. Jagat Dasami Ki Jai. Yamunamai Ki Jai. Srimati Lasa Devi Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nevashesha Shanyavadi Paschatya Deja Tarane. So we're going to continue. First let us read the translation of this poem by Bhaktivinoda Thakur entitled Gurudev. Gurudev, give this servant just one drop of mercy. I'm lower than a blade of grass. Give me all help. Give me strength. Let me be as you are without desires or aspirations. Gurudev, I offer you all respects, for thus I may have the energy to know you correctly. Then by chanting the holy name in great ecstasy, all my offenses will cease. Gurudev, when will such mercy fall to this one who is weak and devoid of intelligence? Allow me to be with you. Gurudev, if you examine me, you will find no good qualities. Your mercy is all that I am made of. If you are not merciful unto me, I can only weep, and I will not be able to maintain my life. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur Ki Jai. So now we're going to continue with the Krishna book. And we're starting with a very special chapter today, which is about the Rasa Leela. Oh my God. Introduction to the Rasa Leela. So these are very elevated subject matters. Just hear, don't speculate, don't use your mundane intelligence or mundane mind to try to understand these things, because these are purely transcendental pastimes. And there's some similarities, of course, to the interactions between men and women in this world. But those similarities are simply due to the fact that the interactions between men and women in this world are a perverted reflection of the original spiritual Ras, which is called the Adi Ras. Adi means the original Ras in the spiritual world. So we should understand that, just like the Madhurya Ras in the spiritual world is a Ras of pure love, and then the Madhurya Ras in this world is always colored with some form of sense gratification. What does it? Sense gratification means personal interest. What's in it for me? Like with him. What's in it for me? And the gopis are thinking, Withik. What's in it for Krishna? That's the difference between a whiffim and a whiffic. Okay, that's a new term I just invented. So let's go on. Om Gana Timidanda Shah. Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshur Unmiritam Yena. Tasmai Shigaravena Maha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. By Prabhupada's mercy, we are able to access these most elevated subject matters, which obviously we wouldn't have access to otherwise. And Prabhupada, in explaining the Rasa Leela and all the events leading up to it, enables us to avoid the pitfalls of projecting our mundane conceptions upon the Rasa Leela. So, let's go. So, we're going to share the screen right now. Whoops. Why can't I see the... What's wrong with this? Ooh. Huh. Hold on a second. Huh. It's not letting me share screen. I mean, I could... Wait a second. Wait a minute. If it doesn't let me share, then I'll just read. But I actually like to share the screen so you can all read along with me. Huh. Some glitch in the internet. Let me just go offline for a second, and I'll be right back in 1 second. And we will see. I'll just make Gopal the host and just go off. It's working fine now. Okay, sorry about that glitch. And let us start reading. We just set up the screen. Okay, we're reading from chapter 29, which is called the Rasa Dance Introduction. Now there's two words, Rasa and Rasa. The word Rasa, see how this word here is Rasa because it has a long A. I've outlined it. That refers to a particular type of dance. Rasa refers to the taste in a particular relationship, like the Shantaras, Dasharas, Sakyaras, Vatsalyaras, and Madhuryaras. So remember the difference between Rasa and Rasa. Okay, so this is the introduction to the Rasa dance. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that the Rasa dance took place on the full moon night of the Sharat season. From the statements of previous chapters, it appears that the festival of Govardhan Puja was performed just after the dark moon night of the month of Kartik, and thereafter the ceremony of Vartri Dvitiya was performed, and then the wrath of Indra was exhibited in the shape of torrents of rain and hailstorms, and Lord Krishna held up Govardhan Hill for 7 days until the 9th day of the moon. Thereafter, on the 10th day, the inhabitants of Vrindavan were talking amongst themselves about the wonderful activities of Krishna, and the next day Ekadasi was observed by Nanda Maharaj. On the next day, Dwadasi, Nanda Maharaj went to take a bath on the Ganges and was arrested by one of the men of Varuna. Remember that story? Then he was released by Lord Krishna. Then Nanda Maharaj, along with the coward men, was shown the spiritual sky. You remember that? In this way, the full moon night of the Sharat season came to an end. The full moon night of Ashvina is called Sharat Purnima. It appears from the statements of Srimad Bhagavatam that Krishna had to wait another year for such a moon before enjoying the Rasa dance with the gopis. At the age of 7 years, he lifted Govardhan Hill. Therefore, the Rasa dance took place during his 8th year. From the Vedic literature, it appears that when a theatrical actor dances among many dancing girls, the group dance is called a Rasa dance. When Krishna saw the full moon night of the Sharat season decorated with various seasonal flowers, especially the mulika flowers, which are very fragrant, he remembered the gopis' prayers to goddess Katyayani, wherein they prayed for Krishna to be their husband. He thought that the full moon night of the Sharat season was just suitable for a nice dance. So their desire to have Krishna as their husband would then be fulfilled. The words used in this connection in Srimad Bhagavatam are Bhagavan Opi. This means that although Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus he has no desire that needs to be fulfilled because he is always full with six opulences, he still wanted to enjoy the company of the gopis in the Rasa dance. Bhagavan Api signifies that this dance is not like the ordinary dancing of young boys and young girls. The specific words used in Srimad Bhagavatam are Yoga Mayam Upashrita, which means that this dancing with the gopis is on the platform of Yoga Maya, not Mahamaya. Of course, Yoga Maya is Krishna's internal potency. Mahamaya is Krishna's external potency. And Mahamaya is sometimes called Durga. The dancing of young boys and girls within this material world is in the kingdom of Mahamaya, or the external energy. The Rasa dance of Krishna with the gopis is on the platform of Yoga Maya. The difference between the platforms of Yoga Maya and Mahamaya is compared to in the Chaitanya Charitamrita to the difference between gold and iron. From the viewpoint of metallurgy, gold and iron are both metals, but the quality is completely different. Similarly, although the Rasa dance and Lord Krishna's association with the gopis appears like the ordinary mixing of young boys and girls, the quality is completely different. The difference is appreciated by great Vaishnavas because they can understand the difference between love of Krishna and lust. Let me say something. Oh yeah, just like the words Yoga Maya and Mahamaya. Maha means great. In other words, great illusion that we're under. And yoga basically means to connect. So, and Maya means energy. Sometimes the word Maya indicates illusion. And of course in the Mahamaya platform it indicates illusion as well as bewilderment. But the Yoga Maya potency of the Lord indicates a connection with Krishna. That is the potency that brings one closer to Krishna. Yes, the personification of Yoga Mayas in Krishna's pastimes is Purnamashi, that is in the Vrindavan pastimes. So on the Mahamaya platform, dances take place on the basis of sense gratification. But when Krishna is called the gopis by sounding his flute, they very hurriedly rush toward the spot of the Rasa dance with a transcendental desire to satisfy Krishna. Here's the difference. Whoops. What happened here? Uh-oh. Okay. He skipped something. Okay. Little. Hold on a second. Okay. Yeah, so that's the point. The transcendental desire to satisfy Krishna, not that they're thinking of satisfying their own senses. The author of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, has explained that lust means sense gratification and love also means sense gratification, but for Krishna. In other words, when activities are enacted on the platform of personal sense gratification, they are called material activities, but when they are enacted for the satisfaction of Krishna, they are spiritual activities. On any platform of activities, the principle of sense gratification is there. It's an interesting statement. But on the spiritual platform, sense gratification is for the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, whereas on the material platform, it is for the performer. For example, on the material platform, when a servant serves a master, he is trying to satisfy not the senses of his master, but rather his own senses. The servant would not serve the master if the payment stopped, especially if one's an employee. That means that the servant engages himself in the service of the master just to satisfy his own senses. On the spiritual platform, however, the servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead serves Krishna without payment, and he continues his service service in all conditions. That is the difference between Krishna consciousness and material consciousness. As mentioned above, it appears that Krishna enjoyed the Rasa dance with the gopis when he was 8 years old. At that time, many of the gopis were married, because in India, especially in those days, girls were married at a very early age. There are even many instances of a girl as giving birth to a child at the age of 12. Under the circumstances, all the gopis who wanted to have Krishna as their husband were already married. At the same time, they continued to hope that Krishna would be their husband. Their attitude toward Krishna was that of paramour love. Therefore, the loving affairs of Krishna with the gopis are called Padikya Ras. The attitude of a married man who desires another's wife, or a wife who desires another husband, is called Padikya Ras. These are very important terms. And if one is with one's wife, or with one's husband, that's called Swakya, one's own. Padakya means another one. Anyway, so in this material world, the Padikya Ras is the most abominable. Actually, Krishna is the husband of everyone because he is the supreme enjoyer. The gopis wanted Krishna to be their husband, but factually there was no possibility of his marrying all the gopis. Of course, he did that, if you remember properly, when Lord Brahma stole all the cowherd boys and calves, and Krishna manifested himself as all the cowherd boys as well as all the calves. And during that year, they had the official marriages between the gopis and the cowherd boys. So in one sense, Krishna was married, but that was esoteric, not really known by almost anybody, except for us and Krishna. But because they had that natural tendency to accept Krishna as the supreme husband, the relationship between the gopis and Krishna is called Padikya Ras. This Padikya Ras is ever existent in Goloka Vrindavan, in the spiritual sky, where there's no possibility of the inebriety which characterizes Padikya Ras in the material world. In other words, relationship with a man and woman who are not married to each other is inebriety, full of inebriety. In the material world, Padikya Ras is abominable, whereas in the spiritual world it is present in the super excellent relationship of Krishna and the gopis. There are many relationships with Krishna, master and servant, friend and friend, parent and son, and lover and beloved. Out of all these rasas, the Padikya Ras is considered to be the topmost. This material world is the perverted reflection of the spiritual world. It is just like the reflection of a tree on the bank of a reservoir of water. The topmost part of the tree is seen as the lowest part. Of course, that example is given in the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And if you're interested in that example and the elaboration on that example, please read chapter 15 in the Bhagavad Gita. Similarly, Padikya Ras, when pervertedly reflected in this material world, is most abominable. Therefore, when people imitate the rasa dance of Krishna with the gopis, they simply enjoy the perverted, abominable reflection of the transcendental Padikya Ras. There's no possibility of enjoying this transcendental Padikya Ras within the material world. It is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam that one should not imitate this Padikya Ras even in dream or imagination. Those who do so drink the most deadly poison. Of course, the example given sometimes is that if one tries to imitate Krishna's affairs with the gopis, thinking that one is powerful enough to do that, then one should also be ready to drink deadly poison, just like Lord Shiva did when Lord Shiva was protecting all the residents of the universe when the poison came out of the churning of the Milk Ocean. So Lord Shiva actually drank that poison, and even insofar as Lord Shiva's reaction, his throat turned blue, or had a blue streak because of that. So don't think you can drink poison, don't think you can lift Govardhan Hill, that's another example Prabhupada gave, and don't think you can have a Padikya Ras with even one girl or one boy. Very abominable. When Krishna, the supreme enjoyer, and actually according to the principles of religion, cleanliness, mercifulness, truthfulness, and austerity, this illicit sex destroys all sorts of let's say, concepts or application of cleanliness in Kali Yuga. And you see that so many diseases are spread. And then people complain, oh, you got to find a cure for this disease. Don't discriminate against us because we are actually spreading the disease. That's unfair. Those who are not spreading the disease should pay for us to not spread the disease, even though we're actually engaged in so many illicit affairs. There's so much hypocrisy is there. When Krishna, the supreme enjoyer, desired to enjoy the company of the gopis in that full moon night of the Sharat season, exactly at that very moment the moon, the lord of the stars, appeared in the sky, displaying its most beautiful features. The full moon night of the Sharat season is the most beautiful night of the year. In the Indian city of Agra, in the Uttar Pradesh province, there is a great monument called the Taj Mahal, which is a tomb made of first-class marble stone. During the night of the full moon of the Sharat season, many foreigners go to see the beautiful reflections of the moon on the tomb. Thus, this full moon night is celebrated even today for its beauty. When the full moon rose in the east, it tinged everything with a reddish color. With the rising of the moon, the whole sky appeared smeared by red kumkum. When a husband long separated from his wife returns home, he decorates the face of his wife with red kumkum. This long-expected moonrise of the Sharat season was thus smearing the eastern sky. A very poetic description. The appearance of the moon increased Krishna's desire to dance with the gopis. The forest, as they may say, Krishna was dependent on the appearance of the moon. No, this is his desire, and Yogamaya, in coordination with Brinda, arranged for this moon to appear like that in that day. The forests were filled with fragrant flowers. The atmosphere was cooling and festive. When Lord Krishna began to blow his flute, the gopis all over Vrindavan became enchanted. Their attraction to the vibration of the flute increased 1,000 times due to the rising full moon, the red horizon, the calm and cool atmosphere, and the blossoming flowers. All the gopis were by nature very much attracted to Krishna's beauty. And when they heard the vibration of his flute, they became apparently lustful to satisfy the senses of Krishna. Immediately upon hearing the vibration of the flute, they all left their respective engagements and proceeded to the spot where Krishna was standing. While they ran very swiftly, their earrings swung back and forth, they all rushed toward the place known as Vamshivat. Some of them were engaged in milking cows, but they left their milking business half finished and immediately went to Krishna. One of them had just collected milk and put it in a milk pan on the stove to boil, but she did not care whether the milk overboiled and spilled. She immediately left to go see Krishna. Some of them were breastfeeding their small babies, and some were engaged in distributing food to the members of their families. But they left all such engagements and immediately rushed toward the spot where Krishna was playing his flute. Some were engaged in serving their husbands, and some were themselves engaged in eating, but caring neither to serve their husbands nor eat. They immediately left. Some of them wanted to decorate their face with cosmetic ointments and to dress themselves very nicely before going to Krishna, but unfortunately they could not finish their cosmetic decorations or put on their clothes in the right way because of their anxiety to meet Krishna. Their faces were decorated hurriedly and were haphazardly finished. Some even put the lower part of their clothes on the upper part of their bodies and the upper part on the lower part. I can't picture that. While all the gopis were hurriedly leaving their respective places, their husbands, brothers, and fathers were all struck with wonder to know where they were going. Being young girls, they were protected either by husbands, elder brothers, or fathers. All their guardians forbade them to go to Krishna, but they disregarded them. Haribol. When a person becomes attracted to Krishna and is in full Krishna consciousness, he does not care for any worldly duties, even though very urgent. Krishna consciousness is so powerful that it gives everyone relief from all material activities. Srila Rupa Goswami has written a very nice verse wherein one gopi advises another, and this is a sarcastic verse. My dear friend, if you desire to enjoy the company of material society, friendship, and love, then please do not go to see that smiling boy Govinda, who was standing on the bank of the Yamuna and playing his flute, his lips brightened by the beams of the full moonlight. Srila Rupa Goswami indirectly instructs us that one who has been captivated by the beautiful smiling face of Krishna has lost all attraction for material enjoyments. This is the test of advancement in Krishna consciousness. A person advancing in Krishna consciousness must lose interest in material activities and personal sense gratification. And not, in other words, the person engaged in Krishna consciousness doesn't have to think directly about giving up material or personal sense gratification. He or she simply has to think of Krishna, think of serving Krishna, think of serving Krishna's pure devotees, think of worshiping the deities, or think of chanting, not just think, but chant Krishna's holy names. And then, according to the Bhagavad Gita, one has Rasa Varjam Rasa Pisha Param Tishtani Vartati, a higher taste. Some of the gopis were factually detained from going to Krishna by their husbands and were locked up by force within their rooms. Being unable to go to Krishna, they began to meditate upon his transcendental form by closing their eyes. They already had the form of Krishna within their minds. They proved to be the greatest yogis, as it is stated in the Bhagavad Gita. A person who is constantly thinking of Krishna within his heart with faith and love is considered to be the topmost of all yogis. Actually, a yogi concentrates his mind on the form of Lord Vishnu. That is real yoga. Krishna is the original form of all Vishnu tattvas. The gopis, who could not personally go to Krishna, began to meditate on him as perfect yogis. In the conditioned stage of the living entities, there are two kinds of results or fruit of activities. The conditioned living entity who is constantly engaged in sinful activities has suffering as its result, and he who is engaged in pious activities has material enjoyment as a result. In either case, material suffering or material enjoyment, the sufferer or enjoyer is conditioned by material nature. And even material enjoyment, we know, is temporary and is not really enjoyment per se. It's the cessation of miseries for a particular time, or one forgets about one's miseries. For example, sometimes, one goes to sleep at night and is so happy that you're forgetting about all the problems during the day. Or Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives the example of a dunking stool, how a criminal would be punished by putting him under the water and raising him up when he was practically drowning after, I guess, 2 or 3 minutes. And this criminal would start to breathe. And the criminal would think, wow, this is enjoyment, just breathing. So when you got the bad, then you can appreciate the good. But without the bad, you can't appreciate the good. That's the material world. Now, Krishna consciousness, it can be all good. You don't need suffering to actually enhance your Krishna conscious enjoyment. The Gopi associates of Krishna who assembled in the place where Krishna was appearing were from different groups. Most of the gopis were eternal companions of Krishna, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, in the Brahma Samhita. Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibha Vitavi. In the spiritual world, the associates of Krishna, especially the gopis, are manifestations of the pleasure potency of Lord Krishna. And actually, some of the gopis were actually coming from, let's say, the Dandakaranya forest. Previously, they were associated with Lord Ramchandra, and they wanted to have a conjugal relationship with him, but that wasn't possible because Lord Ramchandra had this Ekapatni Vrata, where he took a vow only one wife in that particular life, so they had to take birth again as the sages, not as sages, but as ladies, gopis, in Vrindavan, and then they got a chance to be with Krishna. And then there were other gopis who were just sadhana siddha gopis. They're expansions of Srimati Radharani. Now Prabhupada here is talking about the eternal gopis. But when Krishna exhibits his transcendental pastimes within this material world, in some of the universes, not only the eternal associates of Krishna but all come, but also those who are being promoted to that status from the material world. So some of the gopis who join Krishna's pastimes within this material world were coming from the status of ordinary human beings. We mentioned that before. Prabhupada commented, when someone becomes Krishna conscious, the first birth they take before going back to the spiritual world after being Krishna conscious is to take birth wherever Krishna's pastimes are taking place in some universe somewhere, so they can get trained up, and then the next birth they actually go back to Godhead. If they had been bound by fruit of action, they were fully freed from the reactions of karma by constant meditation on Krishna. Their severely painful yearnings caused by their not being able to see Krishna freed them from all sinful reactions, and their ecstasy of transcendental love for Krishna in his absence ended all the reactions to material pious activities. In other words, the gopis whose husbands stopped them from seeing Krishna. The conditioned soul is subjected to birth and death, either by pious or sinful activities, but the gopis who began to meditate on Krishna transcended both positions and became purified and thus elevated to the status of the gopis already expanded by his pleasure potency. All the gopis who concentrated their minds on Krishna in the spirit of paramour love became fully purified of all the fruit of reactions of material nature, and some of them immediately gave up their material bodies developed under the three modes of material nature. Maharaj Parikshit heard Shukadeva Goswami explain the situation of the gopis who assembled with Krishna in the Rasa dance. When he heard that some of the gopis, simply by concentrating on Krishna as their paramour, became freed from all contamination of material birth and death, he said, "The gopis did not know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They accepted him as a beautiful boy and considered him to be their paramour. So how was it possible for them to get freed from the material condition just by thinking of a paramour? One should consider here that Krishna and the ordinary living beings are qualitatively one. The ordinary living beings, being part and parcel of Krishna, are also Brahman, but Krishna is the supreme Brahman. The question is, if it is possible for a devotee to get free from the material contaminated state simply by thinking of Krishna, then why should this not be possible for others who are also thinking of someone else?" It's an interesting question. One is thinking of a husband or son, or if anyone at all is thinking of another living entity, then since all living entities are also Brahman, why are all those who thus think of others not freed from the contaminated stage of material nature? This is a very intelligent question, because there are always atheists imitating Krishna. In these days of Kali Yuga, there are many rascals who think themselves to be as good as Krishna, and who cheat people into believing that thinking of them is as good as thinking of Lord Krishna. Parikshit Maharaj, apprehending the future dangerous condition of the blind followers of demoniac imitators, therefore asked this question, and fortunately it is recorded in Srimad Bhagavatam, to warn innocent people that thinking of an ordinary man and thinking of Krishna are not the same. Actually, even thinking of the demigods cannot compare with thinking of Krishna. It is warned in the Vaishnava Tantra that one who puts Vishnu, Narayana, or Krishna on the same level as the demigods is called a Pashandi or rascal. That verse is Yastu Narayanam Devam Brahma Rudradi Daivata Smitvainarva Viksheta Sapashandi Bhavetrubam. If one considers Vishnu, Narayan, Krishna, or the demigods to be equal to Vishnu, Narayan, Krishna, that person is an atheist, a rascal. I used to quote this quite a bit when I went to Hindu centers, and I got in a lot of trouble. People got really angry. But still, I quoted it, and Prabhupada also quoted it quite a bit. On hearing this question from Maharaj Parikshit, Shukadeva Goswami replied, "My dear king, your question is already answered even before this incident." Because Parikshit Maharaj wanted to clear up the situation, his spiritual master answered him very intelligently. "Why are you again asking about the same subject matter which has already been explained to you? Why are you so forgetful?" The spiritual master is always in the superior position, so he has the right to chastise his disciple in this way. Shukadeva Goswami knew that Maharaj Parikshit asked the question not for his own understanding, but as a warning to the future innocent people who might think others to be equal to Krishna. Shukadeva Goswami then reminded Parikshit Maharaj about the salvation of Shishupal. Shishupal was always envious of Krishna, and because of his envy, Krishna killed him. But since Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shishupal gained salvation simply by seeing him. If an envious person can get salvation simply by concentrating his mind on Krishna, then what to speak of the gopis who are so dear to Krishna and always think of him in love? There must be some difference between the enemies and the friends. If Krishna's enemies could get freed from material contamination and become one with the Supreme, then certainly his dear friends like the gopis can achieve such freedom and much more. Besides that, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is called Rishikesha, means the controller or proprietor of the senses. Shukadeva Goswami also said that Krishna is Rishikesha, the super soul. Whereas an ordinary man is a conditioned soul covered by the material body, Krishna and Krishna's body are the same because he is Rishikesha. Any person making a distinction between Krishna and Krishna's body is fool number one. Krishna is Rishikesha and at Hokshaja. Hokshaja means he's beyond the purview of the material senses and mind. These two particular words have been used by Shukadeva Goswami in this instance. Rishikesha is the super soul, and Hokshaja is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, transcendental to the material nature. Just to show favor to the ordinary living entities, out of his causeless mercy he appears as he is. Unfortunately, foolish persons mistake him to be an ordinary person, and thus they become eligible to go to hell. Shukadeva Goswami continued to inform Maharaj Pariksit that Krishna is not an ordinary person, but rather the Supreme Personality of Godhead, imperishable, immeasurable, and without any material qualities, but full of all spiritual qualities. He appears in this material world out of his causeless mercy, and whenever he appears as he is without change. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, where the Lord says that he appears by his spiritual potency. He does not appear under the control of the material potency. The material potency is under his control. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that the material potency is working under his superintendence. Maya jakshena prakriti suyate sa chara charan hetunanena konti jagapi bari bhartate. That's the verse in the Bhagavad Gita. It is also confirmed in the Brahma Samhita that the material potency known as Durga is acting just like the shadow of the substance. The material world is a reflection or a shadow. The conclusion is that if one somehow or other becomes attached to Krishna or attracted to him, either because of his qualities of beauty, opulence, fame, strength, renunciation, or knowledge, through affection or friendship, even though through lust, anger, or fear, then one's salvation and freedom from material contamination are assured. In the Bhagavad Gita, 18th chapter, the Lord states that one who is engaged in preaching Krishna consciousness is very dear to him. A preacher has to face many difficulties in his struggle to preach pure Krishna consciousness. Sometimes he has to suffer bodily injuries, and sometimes he has to meet death also. All this is taken as a great austerity on behalf of Krishna. Krishna therefore has said that such a preacher is very, very dear to him. If Krishna's enemies can expect salvation simply by concentrating their minds on him, then what to speak of persons who are so dear to Krishna? The conclusion should be that the salvation of those who are engaged in preaching Krishna consciousness in the world is guaranteed under all circumstances. But such preachers never care for salvation because factually, one who is engaged in Krishna consciousness, devotional service, has already achieved salvation. Shukadeva Goswami therefore assured Maharaj Pariksit that he should always rest assured that one who is attracted by Krishna attains liberation from material bondage because Krishna is the transcendental master of all mystic power. When all the gopis assembled as described before Krishna, he began to speak to them, welcoming them as well as discouraging them by word jugglery. Krishna is the supreme speaker. He is the speaker of the Bhagavad Gita. He can speak on the highest elevated subjects of philosophy, politics, and economics, everything. And he also spoke before the gopis, who were very dear to him. He wanted to enchant them by word jugglery, and thus he began to speak as follows. Old ladies of Vrindavan, Krishna said, you are very fortunate and you are very dear to me. I am very much pleased that you have come here, and I hope everything is well in Vrindavan. Now please order me. What can I do for you? What is the purpose of your coming here in the dead of night? Please, kindly take your seats and let me know what I can do for you." The gopis had come to Krishna to enjoy his company, to dance with him, embrace him, and kiss him. And when Krishna began to receive them very officially, showing all kinds of etiquette, they were surprised. He was treating them like ordinary society women. Therefore they began to smile among themselves, and though they very eagerly listened to Krishna talk in that way, they were surprised. Then Krishna began to instruct them. "My dear friends, you must know that it is now the dead of night, and the forest is very dangerous. At this time, all the ferocious jungle animals, the tigers, bears, jackals, and wolves, are prowling in the forest. Therefore, it is very dangerous for you. You cannot select a secure place now. Everywhere you go, you will find that all these animals are loitering to find their prey. I think, therefore, that you are taking a great risk in coming here in the dead of night. Please turn back immediately without delay." When he saw that they continued to smile, he said, "I very much appreciate your bodily features. All of you have nice, thin, very thin waists. All the gopis there were exquisitely beautiful. They are described by the word sumajjhima. The standard of beauty of a woman is said to be sumajjhima when the middle portion of the body is slender. Su means auspicious, majjhima means middle. Krishna wanted to impress on them that they were not old enough to take care of themselves. Actually, they required protection. It was not very wise for them to come in the dead of night to Krishna. Krishna also indicated that he was young, and they were young girls. It does not look very well for young girls and boys to remain together in the dead of night. After hearing this advice, the gopis did not seem very happy. Therefore, Krishna began to stress the point in a different way. "My dear friends, I can understand that you have left your homes without the permission of your guardians. Therefore, I think your mothers, fathers, your elder brothers, and even your sons, and what to speak of your husbands, must be very anxious to find you. As long as you are here, they must be searching in different places, and their minds must be very agitated. So don't tarry. Please go back and make them peaceful." When the gopis appeared to be a little bit disturbed and angry from hearing the free advice of Krishna, they diverted their attention to looking at the beauty of the forest. At that time, the whole forest was illuminated by the bright shining of the moon, and the air was blowing very silently over the blooming flowers, and the green leaves of the trees were moving in the breeze. Krishna took the opportunity of their looking at the forest to advise them, "I think you have come out to see the beautiful Vrindavan forest on this night." He said, "But you must now be satisfied, so return to your homes without delay. I understand that you are all very chaste women, so now that you have seen the beautiful atmosphere of the Vrindavan forest, please return home and engage in the faithful service of your respective husbands. Some of you must have babies by this time, although you are very young. You must have left your small babies at home and they must be crying. Please immediately go back home and just feed them with your breast milk. I can also understand that you have very great affection for me, and out of that transcendental affection you have come here, hearing my playing the flute. Your feelings of love and affection for me are very appropriate because I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead." He's revealing his ontological position. "All the living creatures are my parts and parcels, and naturally they are affectionate to me, so this affection for me is very welcome, and I congratulate you for this. Now you can go back to your homes. Another thing I must explain to you is that for a chaste woman, service to the husband without duplicity is the best religious principle. Not only should a woman be faithful and chaste to her husband, but she should also be affectionate to the friends of her husband, obedient to the father and mother of her husband, and affectionate to the younger brothers of her husband. And most importantly, a woman must take care of her children." In this way, Krishna explained the duty of a woman. He also stressed the point of serving the husband, even if he is not of very good character, or even if he is not very rich or fortunate, or even if he's old or invalid on account of continued diseases. Whatever her husband's condition, a woman should not divorce her husband if she actually desires to be elevated to the higher planetary systems after leaving the body. Besides that, it is considered abominable in society if a woman is unfaithful and goes searching after another man. Such habits will deter a woman from being elevated to the heavenly planets, and the results of such habits are very degrading. A married woman should not search for a paramour, for this is not sanctioned by the Vedic principles of life. If you think that you are very much attached to me and you want to enjoy my association, or you want my association, I advise you not to personally try to enjoy me. It is better for you to go home, simply talk about me and think of me, and by this process of constantly remembering me and chanting my names, you will surely be elevated to the spiritual platform. There's no need to stand near me. Please go back. Let's see how much more we have in this chapter. Probably have quite a bit. Yeah, we have quite a bit. So we're going to end here. And okay. So we ended in the middle of the chapter. So now we'll take some questions. Stop sharing. And we will, whoops, allow you to unmute yourselves. Okay, so you can raise your hand. If you have a question about this most important chapter, you can raise your hand, you can unmute yourself, or you can type in the chat window. So who has a question? Now is your opportunity.
Hare Krishna Gurudev. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glory. Gurudev,
Sounds
I'm
like
here.
you have two devices open. Just keep one device open right now. Okay, ask your question. Whoops.
Hare Krishna Gurudev.
Yeah, that's better.
I have a question on how Krishna is advising gopis to go back home. So,
Yeah.
and it is mentioned he's using words of jugglery. So I'm thinking, is he serious? The way he's explaining looks like he's giving very good advice, go home and duties. So, but it is confusing. What is he really mean? If someone
Well,
will read, they'll say he's serious about it.
no, he's not serious about it. He's actually teasing the gopis to actually hear, teasing and testing, two things, teasing and testing. He's teasing them to actually get them angry, and that enhances the rust, and basically to have them go deeper into their feelings, because when that enhances the rust, they get angry, they get worried, all these emotions arise in the gopis, then that helps them deepen their attachment and love for Krishna. So, and then also, you can also say he's testing them. Go back home. Now, if you remember in the previous chapter, one of the previous chapters where we talked about the wives of the Brahmanas, he told them to go back home, and they did go back home.
Mm.
So in this particular case, he told them to go back home and don't worry, your husbands will accept you. And actually, that's what happened. But in this particular case, it's a test. And then you could see the gopis' extreme determination in spite of all the trouble that they would actually get in, and all the danger in the forest, and all of Krishna's teasing words. They just wouldn't listen to Krishna. So those are the reasons. Krishna's not serious, no.
He's not serious, but the duties he's mentioning,
The
they,
duties he's mentioning are true duties.
hmm,
Not that
okay.
one should think that those duties should be neglected. These are true duties, with the exception of the case where Krishna directly calls you with his flute.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's,
So in that particular case, then basically join Krishna. But that's very rare. That's very rare. So yes, there are actually duties, but what did they say? Exception makes the rule. So this is the one exception where you don't have to fulfill that particular obligation. Only exception. Not for conditioned soul, not for sadhakas. That exception is only for the pure devotees, the gopis, who are 100% pure. Okay?
okay. Thank you, Gurudev.
Okay, yeah, so take seriously Krishna's words. Well, how Krishna is advising the gopis should be accepted by all you ladies. Please don't think differently. Of course, serve your husbands. Of course, if the husbands are just like demons, that's a different thing. We're not going to get into that right now. But Anyway, so okay, next is Sam.
Hare Krishna Gurudev. My,
Haribo.
my question is Krishna is 8 years old, he's a child. Why would anyone look at it like lust and perversion? That's kind of confusing to me. He just left Govinda Hill at 7, and now he's a child playing around with the gopis, and all of a sudden it's lust. So, exactly what's going on?
Well, it's not actually lust, but the point is that Krishna's interactions with the gopis are not dependent upon any particular physiological stage of development. Like, I mean, just for example, in this world, the lusty or loving relationships between men and women are dependent upon one reaching a particular age, and it's not eight. Usually the age that one reaches puberty, is at least 10 or 11, whatever. And then, things change in the body, and then one becomes interested in the opposite sex. So, but Krishna's body is transcendental, and the loving exchanges that Krishna had with the gopis is not dependent upon the hormones flowing in a particular body. There's not a hormonal exchange or a hormonal influence on the psychology of Krishna. So Krishna has a completely transcendental body. I mean, he can act like a complete adult when he's 2 years old. I mean, look at how Krishna killed Putana, or how Krishna killed Trinavarta. He manifested things that would be impossible for anyone with a material body. Some of the acharyas, further answering your question, some of the acharyas talk about how Krishna, when he did engage in the rasa dance, he manifested an older body at that particular point. So, I mean, obviously, 8 years old, very small like that. Uh, so, Krishna can manifest himself any way he wants because his body is transcendental. Just like, I have a really old body, and so I can't just desire to manifest myself right now as a youth. I'm stuck at a particular age. Whereas Krishna can actually manifest himself in an older form. And, is it 16, whatever. Uh, 16, 15, Kishori, like that. So some of the acharyas mention that. But in any case, Krishna's body is Satchidananda Vigraha. It's not conditioned by the material conditions like our body is. Even when Krishna was 125 years old, which is described on the during the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Krishna actually looked like a 16-year-old boy. So try to understand this. We're not dealing with material bodies. Good question. So, okay, Vishaka Priya, you have a question. You can unmute
Yes, I
yourself.
do.
That's you, Tori.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, well, please accept my obeisances.
And my blessings.
So, I know that you're mentioning, or I don't know if it was you or Prabhupada, that it enhances the experience of the gopis to feel angry with Krishna.
Yeah.
Is that something that,
Yeah.
is that like a normal reaction for us to have? Does that enhance, your average person's experience with Krishna? Should we ever feel angry with Krishna being
Uh,
separated from us?
well, not angry with Krishna. We can feel anxious. Yeah, the certain emotions are actually helpful insofar as connecting us with Krishna. So yes, I mean sometimes Krishna, we can become. Uh, I would say upset. I wouldn't say angry with Krishna, but intense emotions help us connect with Krishna more, help us focus more on the goal of life, and they're purified. I mean, without emotions or
Mm.
intense of emotions, one doesn't make any spiritual advancement. If one chants the holy name uh, ritualistically, but without crying out to Krishna, like Prabhupada said, one should cry out to Krishna like a child or baby crying out for his or her mother. So emotions are necessary, and the more emotional it is in a positive way, the stronger emotions we have in a positive way, then the closer we actually get to Krishna. So Krishna does things like that. We to I mean, even I was just thinking about Lord Jesus Christ as he was put on the cross. I mean, he was crying out to God, "Why hast thou forsaken me?" So the emotions were very intense at that particular point. And so, Prabhupada was put in a lot of difficulty on the boat coming over. Prabhupada was put in difficulty at other times. And, certainly there were very strong emotions. So devotional service is meant to have strong emotions. Either you're on a perfect stage like the gopis, or if, let's say, the coward boys and the residents of Vrindavan, they're very worried when Krishna was dancing, or when Krishna was actually interacting with the Kaliya serpent. Their emotions of fear, anxiety were very, very strong. So those emotions bring us closer to Krishna. So, does that answer the
Thank
question?
you. Yes, thank you.
Okay, and finally, whoops, real quickly, Gaur Hare, you have a question.
Please accept my obeisance. All glory to Srila Prabhupada Maharaj. Uh, my question is in regards to the emotions. You already answered the question though, because for bhakti yoga, emotions are very important, right? Because
Yeah.
we use in the process of developing, emotions to serve Krishna. That's pretty much it. But the reason I asked this because I here in Nicaragua, Central America, there is a lot. There's a big influence of the Hatha yoga and the yoga other systems, and the other yoga systems, and they always speak about controlling their emotions and their mind and this and that, and they always ask me about this type of questions, and I said that no, that in our case it's a different kind of yoga because we're not in the process of denying our emotions or anything, and we want to use them. But my question would be, could you please expand a little bit on this word of control? Because we also use control our senses and stuff,
Well, we
but in terms
control our
of
senses.
bhakti in comparison to the other yoga systems,
Yes, we control our senses by focusing them on Krishna's service. That's all. It's impossible to control the senses. As Krishna says, without doing that, it's impossible because Krishna says, or Arjuna says in the Bhagavad Gita, the 6th chapter, Chanchala Yamana Krishna, Pramati Balavadridam, Tejaham Nigraham Manye, Vayor Eva Shadushko. And the mind is restless, turbulent, very strong, difficult to control as the wind is. So the only way we have emotions, we have sense impulses. So the whole idea is not to get rid of them. That doesn't work. Ultimately, they come out. One can repress them for some time, but after a while, they come out. So our process is to transfer the focus of our emotions, to transfer the focus of our senses, and to Krishna. To Krishna and the spiritual world, and also Krishna's devotees and Krishna's service. Okay, so that's how you would answer it. Okay, it's
Thank you,
really late.
Maharaj.
Okay, it's time to end. So thank you very much, everybody, and we'll continue tomorrow. Same time, same station. These are very important points that are being made by Srila Prabhupada, and we made some of these points in the questions and answers. So please join us tomorrow for continuation on this chapter about the introduction to the Rasa